In the late 90s there were first some urban traffic and parking plans, and they became in the early 2000s PCMs, Plans communaux de mobilité, municipal mobility plans. And in 2004 there were a decree is a regional law in Belgium, creating two tools. The first one was the PCM, municipal mobility plans, and the other one was the PUM, Plan urbain de mobilité. It's a kind of municipal mobility plan, but at the scale of urban functional areas. So we have that in the law, but there is also other mobility plans. What were made by other by provinces or by several municipalities together. They are not in the legal framework, but it functions. So we have quite difficult landscape of tools. The plans are not obligatory. If a municipality wants to do its PCM, it asks to the region to have a help to do it, and if the region says yes, the region finances three-fourths of the cost of the study. And up to now we have on the 262 municipalities in the Wallonie region, approximately 2/3 of municipalities with a PCM, and for the main cities and main municipalities, the second generation PCMs, because we consider that after some 12 to 15 years, of course, the plan must be updated. If you see a map of Belgium, you see very well there is a great difference between Wallonia, with many remote areas, and Flanders, which is more, yes, a little bit as a big suburb. And of course it makes a great difference in mobility, and of course in mobility plans and in mobility strategies. We have in Wallonie region 8 cities with more than 100 inhabitants, and just 4 cities or 4 urban areas with more than 100 inhabitants. So it's quite different from Flanders. Yes, in many times rural communities don't have a PCM, because the problems they have to manage are more security, road security problems, or access to mobility as in the social meaning of this, but not real mobility problems. So it's why up to now more the 2/3 of communities with a PCM are middle-sized or middle-sized municipalities or cities. So in the decree there is the tool called PUM, Plan urbain de mobilité, and it's the aim is to manage at the scale of functional urban area the problem of mobility, in of course linked with city planning and so on. There is only one who exists. It is the PUM of the Liège agglomeration. Why? Because when you look at the map, you see very well that at the municipal legal level, the city of Liège is in the center, but the functional area is in more than 15 municipalities. So it's really a must to do it at this scale, and it is the local authorities together that wanted to do it, and the region said, all right, we agree with you, and we start with such a plan. On the other side, there were also the schéma d'accessibilité multimodale, multimodal accessibility scheme, who were studied, but it is not a legal document, and it was studied in two sub-regions of the Hainaut province, around the city of Tournai from one side, and around the twin cities of Mons and La Louvière. Because if you see once again to the map of Wallonia, you see that in the Hainaut we have some middle-sized cities, but it's not very easy to have strong polarities. So it was useful to do it at this size. The question of cooperation between municipalities is not really solved in Wallonia up to now, because there is no legal organization of functional urban areas. So it's just based on goodwill of municipalities. If they share the mind that it is really useful, they will do it. If it comes from up and they are obliged to, it will never go. So it's the only thing I can answer to this kind of question. When you look at the map, you see that the city of Liège is just one densely populated area, but you see in the surrounding that there are eight municipalities who are also densely populated. So it is very important at the local level to be able to manage mobility issues at the scale of urban functional area, and not only at the scale of the city center. In an ideal world, we are looking to the urban communities as they are organized in France. The difference is that in France it is a full political organ, and it is not in Wallonia. So it's quite difficult. Once again, when I see the PUM of Liège, there are some main projects who make the link between the different politicians, and that's how it can go further. There is the project of tramway link. There is a project of a regional railway network. This kind of things, based on very concrete objectives, and then they can go forward. But well, we are up to now. It is the only way to go forward. The implementation of the plan depends on the goodwill of each partner to collaborate, and depends on the budget of each partner and on the planning budget of each partner, and it's precisely why it's so difficult to make a global strategy and to be sure that after 10 years everything will be done, because each partner has its own budget difficulties also. So it's based on the goodwill of each partner, and it's based also on the regular follow-up of the plan. Regularly, all the partners meet together and they say, well, we are at this point, and by this way we try to check how the strategy goes further. The best situation would be to have a better coordination of budget first inside of Wallonie region, of course, and the second one also to be able to have more engaged actors in the way to make the plan succeed. But it depends. Of course, it depends of the local political will. If you have a burgomaster who is very how could I say it in English? Wants it very hard, it will go. If you have a burgomaster saying, well, it's a project between 100 others, and we will see, I'm not sure it is useful, of course. Mm-hmm. It's very different. In our Director General we have two tools. They are not very impressive, but the first tool is credits and budgets, little budgets, but budgets in favor of cycling and pedestrians, and only the municipalities with an approved PCM can have those budgets. It's not a big budget, but it's a first tool. And the second tool is the formation of mobility councillors formed by us, by the region, and they are organized in a network what facilitates dissemination of information and so on. And we see it's very, after now nearly more than 15 years, we see now that they share a common vocabulary. They know each other what they are speaking about. It was not the case, of course, 20 years ago. And it's a very useful tool to disseminate good practices and good ideas between municipalities, between region, between public transport operators, and so on. Mm-hmm. All those people are speaking together in a common language, and it's far better than the prevailing situation. I could mention the city of Charleroi, which was for a many long time quite inactive, and since 3-4 years is far more active, especially in the parking situation. You must know that when the PCM was the second PCM was made, there were more parking places in the city centers than inhabitants. So the city saw it and decided to do something very, very strong. And they have now two scan cars who go through the city each day to identify the vehicles and to see to check that parking regulation is respected. It's 10 years ago. It was totally impossible to imagine that Charleroi could do it one day. So it's a very good example, which could be very useful in other cities. And in the same time, they also reduced the parking offer. Yeah, it's important to say it, of course, because they have understood that it's impossible to control the traffic flows if you don't have a strong action over parking education, of course. First of all, you must know that the region gives a little financial help to the mobility councillors of the 8 Walloon cities, and so it seemed to us interesting to compare the situation of these 8 cities. And when you read the brochure, you see very well that, of course, between Tournai, just here, and between Liège and Charleroi, the situation is totally different. It was also interesting to see that the way each city is organized in the field of mobility. In some cities you have a real mobility service. In other ones, mobility councillor is also active in other fields. So the aim was to have a clear view of what happens in each city, and the first publication was written in 2015, and the second one 2 years later. And we saw that in 2 years, in some cities, not in all, of course, many things have evolved, and it was really interesting that in just 2 years things change. I took the example of Charleroi. I can also take the example of Liège or the example of Namur. Each in its own way, of course. But you see that that things are going further, and projects are going live their life. Things we can learn from others. Of course, there are many things we can learn from others. It would be very interesting to see how the management of SUMP at the functional urban area scale could be compared with other functional areas not very far from here. I think it would be very interesting, because now we are already in it's very artisanal, if I could say. But I think that sometimes some Flemish colleagues say us, "Oh, it's incredible what you reach," when we see that your budget is so poor. So I think it's not always it's not always a must to have a heavy budget to make clear measures. So maybe it is also an optimistic conclusion. My message is that you don't need to have huge budget to make things better. Of course, for some projects it helps, but it is not an absolute must. And my other conclusion is that putting people together and making them sharing the same point of view about common strategies is worthwhile, and with such state of mind you can go further. Even if you haven't no huge projects, but you can go further, and you can make that the action of each other is well fitted one on another.